Welcome to the Pro Design Builder podcast, the show where professionals and entrepreneurs share their stories, strategies, and secrets to building a thriving business and a successful life. I'm Sam, your host, as we dive into entrepreneur stories and and life experiences.
So, I like the giggle.
Exactly. Sometimes you just got to laugh at yourself, right? So, imperfection sometimes is actually a gift, right? Mm-hmm. So I remember one of my friends kind of said that to me. He was like, Sam, you have something that you are imperfect. So can you hear me?
I agree. I lost you for a second, but I agree with everything you just said.
Yeah. And before we dive in, I want to thank our sponsor, the Pro Design Builder. The Pro Design Builder is a coaching and consulting firm. We coach real estate investors that want to build spec homes and multi-family units. It's not just about building a business. It's about building a vision and building a life by design. Right. As you know, for me, foster care is near and dear to my heart. It's a mission that is never over. Right. So I've had a number of kids through my home. I've adopted 2 kids. I'm currently fostering 1. And if you ever feel led to give to our foster care initiative, there will be a link in the Patreon. Feel free to give there. So some of the things that supports, which has been helpful to us as a family, is sometimes a meal once in a while, so we don't have to cook. As the primary cook in the house, I know how beneficial that is. Getting a extra date night here and there from people that are properly screened. We want to make sure that we keep the family unit very tight and strong, and the best way to do that is to have the parents connect, and also providing beds for foster or adoptive parents, when these transitions happen. So if you ever feel led to give, there'll be a link in the Patreon. Feel free to give at that point. So without further ado, I would like to introduce my guest today, and thank you for coming on, Tina McIntosh. Tina McIntosh founded the Joy House, which is a non-for-profit and adult day service in 1999. Personally, Tina is married to Jeff McIntosh, and they have 3 beautiful children. Joy House currently has 2 locations in Indianapolis. The organization has received 2 national awards. Personally, Tina has been honored with numerous awards, her most prized being the 2023 USA Today Woman of the Year honoree for the state of Indiana. Graduate of the last decade from Ball State University, Starkey Entrepreneur, Woman of the Year, and named as one of Indianapolis Business Journal's 40 Under 40. So hopefully I did you justice with that introduction. So just wanted to say thank you for coming on today.
Thanks for having me. I always get a little uncomfortable during an introduction.
It does make you sometimes comfortable when people say stuff about you, but when you are a hard worker and you operate through purpose, which is one of the biggest transitions that I'm making, is fully operating through purpose. It makes a difference, So, and I know with your non-for-profit, you're making a difference in a lot of different families' lives.
Thank you. Yeah, you say purpose. I work with older adults, and so we do the adult day side of things. We also do caregiver support and education, and then we're working on efforts about how do we age well in our communities, because the reality is we don't do a good job of aging well pretty much anywhere. It's a new thing. I don't know. There's a quick stat in there, and then I'll get back to purpose, but by the year 2030, Sam, which is not that far away, there will be more adults over the age of 65 in our nation than there will be children under the age of 18.
Yes. That's the baby boomers, right? So in preparation.
Right. And we have no idea how to care for ourselves, how to live, how to have purposeful lives. But what I was going to say about the word purpose is it is the one thing that we've learned over time that if we lose our purpose, we're done. So I love that you lean into that so much.
Yes, for sure. So kind of there's a consistent theme in our podcast where we like to kind of go back and kind of find out like how you grew up. We want to try to get your backstory. So how were you as a kid, and were there signs that you were headed down this particular path?
Therapy? Is this what we call this? This is therapy, right? I'm totally here for it.
Partially. We're here to help. So yes, absolutely.
Excuse me. So, oh my goodness. All right. I'll give you a little and then you can dive into whatever you want or not.
All right. Sounds good.
How did I grow up? So I'm the oldest. I have 3 half siblings and then I have many step siblings. I always say my family tree is more like a family bush.
Oh, wow.
It's not the traditional, family. My mother has been married 3 times. My father, who passed away last year and a half ago, had been married and divorced 3 times. My stepdad, who raised me, was married 3 times. So there's a lot. I remember when my husband and I got married telling them, like, listen, I love my life and I love being loved by all of you. I did not choose the dynamics. And so, everybody needs to make sure we're in a good place because going forward, we hope to have kids, which we did, and we want you all, to be a part. So I've always been, I think I've always been that person in my family that wanted to keep everybody in the dynamics together, but also recognizes when people or things fall off, and that's okay too. But I was raised playing sports. I was really, really good at Pac-Man. I was raised in kind of a traditional household. We attended church. As kids, I would say we were involved, but not highly involved. Snowmobiles, animals, the whole thing. As I got older, I did a lot of introspection and started to find some of my strengths that maybe I doubted when I was a younger person, if that makes sense.
No, definitely makes a ton of sense. That introspective work is absolutely necessary for your growth. And I mean, if you don't mind, I'm probably gonna just peel back a little bit on this onion that you gave me. So, oftentimes when there's a divorce in a marriage, there's this disruption in the family. So I just wanted to ask you, how did those disruptions really affect you?
Wow. I'd have to go back and plot my timeline, right? Of when did they happen?
Yes.
My mom and dad, my biological father, they divorced when I was very young. Like I probably wasn't even talking yet at that point. When she started seeing my stepdad, who was he's my dad, Tom, the story I hear is I was about 2 years old. I climbed in his lap and said, "Are you going to be my new daddy?" And so I was talking, and he said yes. And so he stuck with that forever. But anxiety was a huge part of my life, Sam. And I don't think that would come as a surprise to any psychologist, with the disruptions, right, that happened often. Also, my half siblings were all born within 12 months of each other.
Oh, wow.
So I went from being really the only, I always joke, the only real child. I understand they're real too. I love them so much. When you love, you can joke, right? But yes, I went from being the oldest and the only then to having 3 infant siblings. All at one time. But anxiety was a huge part of my life. I think some of that is just how I'm made genetically. And then some of that was probably situational. And so when I was in 4th grade, I actually was hospitalized for an entire month at Riley Children's Hospital in Indianapolis for what they called school phobia at the time. I was, to be very clear, not afraid of school, but I was a latchkey kid. And it was really easy for me to have an anxiety attack at the bus stop and let myself back in the house. And then parents were working and no one could come back in. So I would say, as the biggest answer to your question, anxiety ruled my life for a long time and then has had its grip on me over my lifetime.
Okay. All right. And I asked that question, obviously, that I'm in the foster care space, and then what we see often is this pattern, and it first starts with the disruption of a family, and then it goes into trauma, and then mental health, and then then they stumble, and the final nail on the coffin is the drugs. Yes. Right. So this pattern is very prominent, but it's typically not necessarily in a marriage. It might be out of wedlock type of situation, or it's very disruptive. So do you have any thoughts on that pattern?
Yeah, I think it's really spot on. I mean, for me now, so let's get into I didn't do drugs. I, smoked weed a number of times when I was in high school, but alcohol was a really big part of my life. Now I'm also almost 53 years old. And so the reality is, when I was growing up, that was kind of what you did, unfortunately. Yep. Mm-hmm. But Everclear and I were good friends. We'll talk about the ulcers that came as a result of that later. Okay, but yeah, I mean, I drank a lot in high school. Now, where I think I had a big blessing is that my father, who passed, my dad, Ken, he was an alcoholic his entire life. Mm-hmm. And so I saw what a functioning, and I use that word kind of lightly, but a functioning alcoholic looked like. And I love my dad, and he had so many great qualities that he passed on to us. Mm-hmm. I saw what alcoholism could do. Yeah. And I backed off of that, and the anxiety. So for me, the alcohol and the anxiety were not good friends as I got older. When I went off to college, those were, like two magnets flipped over. I couldn't drink because then my anxiety was off the chart, and it was stifling. And so I think in a lot of ways, Sam, the anxiety probably saved me from what could have been a different path in life.
No, for sure. So you mentioned something about, backing off the alcohol, and it's a two-edged sword that I often see. It's either, hey, my parents were this, and now I stumble into this now, or my parents were this, and I want nothing to do with this particular thing. And I'll just share, we didn't have alcohol or drugs in the house, and thank God, that was an absolute blessing. All right. But what we did have, though, was we were in a crack infested environment, and people were like zombies, walking around, in the streets. So what it showed me was, one, I realized very quickly what I don't want to be, right? Yes. And, and what I would never try, because I didn't see any positive. I didn't see anything great come out of it, right? It was almost like we were in a fallen place, right? Mm-hmm. And you were just kind of being an observer, and I just kind of paid attention to everything. So, when you said that it made you, back off, I could definitely relate with how that happened for you.
Yeah, I don't want to do that. I don't want to become that. Now, I mean, don't get me wrong. I still enjoy a nice shot of tequila now and then, or a sipping glass. That could be a different podcast.
Exactly, for sure.
Yeah, I think I see enough of that too. I've got people in my life who are surrounded by drug and alcohol abuse, and you're absolutely right. You choose one of the two paths. And for me, having that anxiety built into the core of who I am, I'll say it this way. It was the thing that would, I mean this lightly, like prevent me from walking in front of a moving bus. Anxiety has a blessing to it as well, that I think sometimes people get so wrapped into the negative parts of it, but anxiety keeps us from doing maybe some things we shouldn't be doing. Correct. So I'm grateful for it. And at this point in my life, I've done it for so long that I can stand in front of a crowd of 600 people and have an anxiety attack on the mic, and you would never know it's happening. I might get a little blotchy red.
Yeah.
For a second, but you would never know. And so, I think the other part that I would just want to put out there is we can overcome these things too. And sometimes it's a combination of things. I think it's the faith underneath all of it, because anxiety doesn't come from God. Right. But we can use it for good. But it is that it's no, don't be afraid for medication if needed.
Yeah. Yep.
Sam, I tried to go off of my Effexor. So
Mm-hmm.
I've been on Effexor for a number of years. I have quite a history of major health issues,
Yeah.
cancers, and some brain issues and things like that. And so I tried to go off my Effexor earlier in 2024. What a disaster. I am not naturally a pleasant person. I am delightful on Effexor. Now, I weigh 50 pounds more than I should, but I would rather be overweight and delightful than,
Yes.
a skinny witch, which is really where I think I am naturally. So I think, our faith and when medication, there's therapy, and just acknowledging these things makes a big difference in how we show up every day.
Yeah, if you ask me, you have fantastic energy. So I'm just
throwing
that.
Brother, there's 50 pounds extra of that energy right now, and you're just stuck with it.
It's all good. All right. So with your family dynamic, right? I wanted to ask you, who was the most influential person in your life?
So my go-to response to that is still true, and then there's a little bit more. So my grandma Ethel, who, God rest her soul, she passed when I was in high school. My grandma Ethel was the coolest. Like, Sam, you would have ditched me in a heartbeat to be friends with her. She was tall and fit. She had, it's funny, I say this when I'm wearing like my mommy mohawk. She had short, gray, spiky hair. She always wore jeans. She wore what looked like Ugg boots before Ugg boots were a thing. She wore
cool.
wait for it. She wore a tube top like every day of her life. And by tube top,
wow.
I mean, like when I was younger, it started at chest level. And by the time she died, it was like lower around her belly button, like
that's funny.
It's true. Yeah. I mean, she was just cool. Like I remember one time there was a store called Merry-Go-Round. I don't know that you would be familiar with it, but it was kind of like a rocker store in the 80s. And my grandma Ethel and I went to Merry-Go-Round. I thought I was going to come out with some like really cool 1984 outfit. And instead we came out with a spiked belt that she had bought, like a spiked rocker belt that she would put her wallet on. Like she was the coolest, but she was the one who, as a kid, my mom and my grandma and my aunt were the only white women in an all black women's league in the 70s in Indiana. I mean, so every Friday night it was like me and a bunch of my aunties, and I was the only white kid running around unless maybe one of my biological cousins showed up.
Cool.
That was grandma's influence. She was the one who we raised baby squirrels because their mom had been run over. And so we raised them running in and out of our doll houses. She made candles. Like, she never knew a stranger. She took people in to help them and uplift them and kind of put them back into the world. She had that tremendous impact on me in so many ways. I would have to add in my mom, who's a very different personality, but there are some common threads in there too. But, she tolerated me through life, and I couldn't have been an easy kid with the anxiety, with the drinking, with, the choices I was making. But my mom was always there and was always just this kind of the foundation that that as a parent, you understand, like, you want to be that foundation.
Yeah, for sure.
And put your kids back into the world. So
no, for sure. So
how about you? Has anybody asked you that question?
Not really, but I'll answer. So my dad is actually, one of the most influential people in my life, and it's still to this day. And I hope to, come close to reaching what he did and operated, for his family. So, just a little bit of background. So I came to the U.S. through political asylum, and my dad was a pilot, in Haiti. And, so he was navigating his whole family through a very challenging transition into a country where you don't speak the language, you don't have money, and all of these elements, right? Because what it makes you do is it makes you think about yourself, right? And I'm a father now, right? And I don't have these elements. I do have other challenges, but I don't have this big, massive transition with all of these obstacles, right? And he did it with such grace and love, and they resembled Christ, right? That was like the best example that I saw. He was a family guy. He was
that like brings tears to my eyes, Sam. Like, yeah, I don't know why it makes me want to cry.
Yeah, he was always about family, like almost like, it sounds crazy, almost like too much, right? If that was such a thing. I just remember, when I was a kid and I was having some frustrations because, we don't come from much. And I see them like just doing all of these things for people and sending money here and feeding people here and doing this and doing that.
You're like, hello, right over here.
I'm just like, I just got so mad at him. I'm just like, I don't understand. And I said to him, I was like, why are you doing all of this for these people and this thing and this, that, and this, that? And he said, Sam, this is what God tells us to do.
Amen.
And I left like woozy. I was like stumbling and bumbling, after that statement. It didn't come full circle until later. And I made this same speech, at his funeral, but it was such a big nugget, such a big boulder that he dropped on me. He didn't even probably really truly realize how big of an impact it had. So he left a very big mark, on us and on our family for sure.
Well, listen, and I don't know you well, but what I do know is that thread is strong with you. It's what you do and how you do your life. And so I think that's beautiful. And it's really important to recognize too, your dad was doing those big things that you mentioned at the same time he was doing those little things that you're doing every day as a father, or I'm doing every day as a mother. Like, that is mind blowing to me. How do people do that? The big and the little.
Yeah.
If I may touch on that idea of tithing.
Go ahead. Go.
So years ago, I had said to my husband, I feel called to tithe. And listen, we're at a point in our lives now in our 50s where we're very blessed. We're in our big house. I always joke the next house is going to be a tiny house with like a tomato plant on a little porch. But this also, there's a story behind that of how God brought us to this home. And there are currently 8 of us, 4 generations living in this house. But that's a different topic.
Different story. Yeah.
So I said I want to tithe, and money doesn't mean as much to me. It doesn't mean I don't know how to manage it. It doesn't mean I don't know how to run a business or a household. It just doesn't mean as much to me. I will give you my last of whatever, right? My husband operates a little bit differently, and it took him a little while longer. And so any wives listening to this will understand when my husband came back to me years later and said, I have an idea. I think we should tithe. The way it often works in a household. I said, that is a great idea. We should do that.
Yeah.
And so we've taken it very seriously. Long story short, we do the 10% off the top. I was raised with giving. I don't know that I was raised with tithing the first 10% off the top. So we started doing that. Well, fast forward to the fact of, again, I mentioned health issues. I've had 2 primary breast cancers. I've had a colon resection. I've had a brain surgery. And 5 weeks ago, I finished brain radiation for a non-cancerous tumor in my brain. So if I do have a little bit of moment where I've hard time putting words together, I still have the after effects of radiation. My husband has had kidney cancer, chronic myeloid leukemia. Sam, he had transient global amnesia where you literally lose your memory for 18 to 24 hours. I'm like, how is that a thing? It was fascinating and horrifying. But through the middle of some of this, when we started tithing, just as God promises, we start getting the refund checks that I had submitted 24, months later. We started getting the gift cards. Now, we were going through health crises and people were really stepping up. Beautiful.
Yeah, for sure.
I get a phone call from the secretary for the man who owns the bank that we have our mortgage through. And she says, hey, I talked with, we'll call him Leonard, talked with Leonard, and he wants to pay a month of your mortgage. Oh, wow. And I was like, I don't know if we can accept that? And she was like, of course you can. Like, he owns the bank. He's going to do it whether you want it or not.
Wow. Yeah.
And a couple weeks later, I got a phone call from someone I had gone to college with, who I always remembered as lovely. And she said, my company, different company, wants to pay a month of your mortgage. And I said, there is no way. Like, someone has done that for us. We are so blessed. Please pass that on to someone else. And she was like, I'm not taking no as an answer.
For an answer. Oh, wow.
People were insistent on their kindness. And then the last one was those are huge, right? The last one, a friend of mine, one of my best friends, I didn't know she and her husband did this, called me one day when I was in chemo. And she called. So I say that chemo because your brain's really fuzzy anyway, right? And she says, hey, where is Maya, our oldest? Where is Maya going to go to college? And I said, she hasn't chosen yet. And she said, where would she go if she could go anywhere? And I said, I think she'll go to Ball State in Indiana, because we make too much to afford her distance outside, and we can't afford to send her off, out of state. She said, yeah, where would she go? And I said, she'd go to App State in North Carolina. And she said, great. My husband and I were talking. You don't know we do this. We pay for a young adult to go to college, and we've chosen Maya, and we want to pay for her for all 4 years for her to go away wherever she wants.
Wow. What
I said, let me go get Jeff. Let me get Jeff. I don't think I'm hearing things clearly.
Exactly. Oh, wow.
When I tell you that God delivered beyond anything we could have ever comprehended with our tithing and our faithfulness. Now, that time has passed. We're in a different season right now. Medical bills are coming in like crazy. I mean, I can't even tell you how much money we owe in medical bills. It's outrageous. Things feel tight right now. But you know what we're going to do, Sam? We're going to continue to tithe. We're going to continue to give the money to the other people, because God will provide.
Yeah. So I the other day, I remember, I forget exactly what my wife was telling me, but I was on my way outside the door, and she told me something. It was something disruptive. And I just, the song popped in my head. I'm going to worship through it.
Amen. Yes.
And that's the source of peace that I get when challenging situations, pop up. So, I mean, you said some big life altering things, and I want to just glance over it. So just kind of take us down the health challenges you've had, and how those things have, affected you.
Oh, well, we're still married, and I can tell you without a doubt, I chose the right husband.
Yes.
He's a pain in the butt, and we drive each other crazy most of the time. I would choose him again because, Sam, I don't know many people who could have survived one of our major diagnoses, much less as many as we've had. So to kind of back up, the first 10 years of our marriage were having babies or just losing babies. And so I know, you and I shared very briefly some of those hardships, but one of them was an ectopic pregnancy, a tubal pregnancy, which was devastating in our lives. And then a couple of other miscarriages. And then in between there, we were blessed with 3 healthy, wild, crazy kids who I are the loves of my lives. That 10 years was really hard. We were in dreaming stage. We were in, what is the rest of our life going to look like? And when you don't get the answers to that, or you get answers that you don't necessarily want, that's really hard. So there was that 10 years. And then the second 10 years was major, cancers and all the things that I mentioned. And so for us, this is what I always tell people. I learned with my first breast cancer that moments for me were like, think of a pie with all the pie pieces, right?
Yep.
And you can take out a piece of the pie and put it back in. Now, like, listen, if it's sweet potato pie, I'm not putting it back in. That's my downfall.
You're justified, yeah.
I won't even share that with you. That I will just eat. But anyway, so my pie pieces, and I always ask people, what do you think it is that I was going through when I had that first cancer? I was 40 years old. I just turned 40. I had a 9-year-old, a 7-year-old, and a 3-year-old at home. I was living my business was thriving, and like all of these things, right? And it's always the negative things. It's fear, it's anger, it's confusion, it's all the negative feelings. But there's also joy and just happiness and laughter and love. And there are other things in there too. So what I learned a long time ago was I could take out any emotion of that emotional pie and I could sit with it. So if I'm angry, I would sit with it. And Sam, I'd be mad. Like there were times I was yelling at God and I was on my knees and I was angry with everybody, about everything. And as soon as that went from the tip of my head to the tip of my toes, I put that piece back in the pie and I wait for whatever emotion is going to come next. What I learned very quickly is if you and I are friends and you came to sit on my front porch with me while I'm bandaged up and I've got my drainage tubes and I'm not feeling well, when you come to me, typically you've pulled out fear or sadness. And so we're sitting on the porch. And when you approach me, there's this extra love in your eyes is clouded with a little bit of tears. People always kind of tipped their head to the side a little bit like a puppy. There was this gentleness and the softness to them as they approached me. And without a doubt, they almost found a way to say, almost every time found a way to say, I love you and touch me, whether it was a hug or with their hand. Maybe you've never said, I love you to before, but in that moment, you'd tip your head and you'd put your hand out and you'd say, Tina, I just want you to know that I love you. And what I realized quickly was that's okay that you came to me with fear or sadness, but I couldn't meet you where you were every time. Or like, dude, I sat in fear and sadness all the time if I did that. And so what I'd have to say to you is, hey, Sam, I recognize that you're really scared and sad right now, and that's okay. Like, I'm here with you. I'm here for it. I'm also really happy right now watching the kids play ball in the cul-de-sac. And I don't want you to mistake that. Like, I'll be sad and I'll be fearful too, just not right at this moment. Because if not, what happened is you got in the car and you called our friend and you were like, girl, we got to talk. She is in denial. And that wasn't it, right? Like, I just didn't. Exactly. So I think I realized very quickly, I chose the right husband. We're open and honest with our kids appropriately for whatever stage they were in. Yep. And being open with people and just saying like, I appreciate where you are and thank you for loving me. Don't mistake my happiness at this very moment for anything other than I'm just really happy at this very moment.
Oh, wow. That's beautiful.
It's a lot. I don't know if that's more or different than what you're, asking, but that's my answer.
No, that's beautiful. Some of the things that you touched on was, the losing of a baby and miscarriages and neck topic. That's like all the way in our wheelhouse, right? People, see us now. We have, 4 kids and we're always doing all of these different things with foster care and, children and stuff like that. And we knew we wanted to be, parents a long time ago and right away, right? When I sat down and spoke to my wife.
Yeah, I'm like, Sam, from what I understand, you knew you wanted to be a father forever.
Yes, I did. As a matter of fact, a little funny thing, right? So when I met my wife, I met her, I told her about my vision and all of these different things. And then I wasn't certain that she was the one for me, but I was certain I found the right mom for my kids, right? And when I share this, which I haven't shared a ton, but I picked her as the mom for my kids first, and then I picked her for myself.
Now, to be clear, you have shared this with your wife.
No, she knows. No,
she's aware.
She's definitely aware. I picked her for the mom of my kids first. Yes. She's aware of this. No, it's strange because that's not how normal operations work, right? You pick them for yourself first, and then But for me, that was such a big element of looking into the future. I had to have the right mother for my kids to have, and it worked out that those go hand in hand, right? The thoughtfulness, the care that she comes to the table with is exactly what I needed from a nurturing standpoint. I didn't fully know that, when I was kind of analyzing it like that, because I know the pieces that I was missing, and that's the pieces that I want to give, and she fits that, perfectly for me. But let me just get back to, a little bit of the miscarriages and in an ectopic, that was probably the foggiest time for us. And we have a fantastic relationship. We always have. We never really argue. I can't even tell you the last time we argued. It's like years in between if we ever have. It's such an easygoing, relationship. But during this time, it brought some significant challenges, right? All you want to do is become a dad or become a mom. And when these things are not happening for you, and that's all that you could want, and you could see yourself, and it seeps into your interactions and stuff like that. It don't make no sense. And then you see someone just get married, and then they just on Facebook, then they got pregnant.
Babies everywhere, right? Pregnant women and babies.
And then you're like, they're on their third one. You're just like, what is going on? I don't understand.
Yes.
We just want to be parents.
See, I was to the point where I was like, people would send flowers, and I would be like, I don't know who I thought I'd say this to, but like, take them away, because all that flower is going to do is die. Everything's dying. Like,
oh man,
it was so hard, right? It's so hard to love and be loved during that time. And yeah, I'm with you. It's taken me, I'm almost 53 years old, and it's taken me this long to be able to say with our ectopic in particular that we had to, and I'm going to use the word abort, and I don't like it either, but we had to terminate, we had to abort, we had to end that pregnancy, because if that baby had grown, it would have died and I would have died. Correct. Without a doubt. Right. And I'm sorry that you understand the pain of those losses, and they're heavy, and there are choices you have to make in there. Correct. That you don't want to make.
Yeah, no, for sure.
That would have killed us 100 years ago. Would have killed us, Sam.
Yeah. It would have killed you 100% out of 100%.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, we're very blessed that we live in a day and a time when, with God's guidance, like there are decisions we have to make. And I would say with your marriage, by the way, I just want to point this out. If we lived in a different culture, and knowing that you were, born in your family from Haiti, like, I don't know the Haitian culture. I'm not going to pretend to understand that, but a different culture. Just pick a different culture or a different timeline. I think the way that you chose your wife is often the way that spouses are chosen for someone or by someone. We live in a day and age where we choose for love first, which that's again, a different therapy session where we think everything has to be romanticized. Like, it's sweet that you're like, I don't know the last time we argued. I was like 5 minutes ago, Sam, it was 5 minutes ago.
Don't worry, we counsel other couples. That's something we coach other couples with our church on how to do life well. So
I just think it's an interesting perspective, right? Of like a different culture, a different timeline. I don't know. I wouldn't ever say you did it. I think you did it right for your marriage, but
absolutely.
Other people's perception, like, I don't know, sometimes we choose for love, and how's that work out for everybody? But anyway, probably not a popular opinion, but
no, that's good. You touched on a challenging topic, which is it's very hot in the press right now, which is the topic of abortion. And I'm going to share this story so you can gain the perspective, and other people can gain the perspective too, right? So we've been trying for years and years and years. I think this is like year 6 at this point of trying, and miscarriages and stuff like that. So we get pregnant, and then, how when you've had miscarriages and stuff like that, I was saying to my wife, I was like, all right, let's just wait, until it's like 6 weeks, and then we go see the doctor or whatever it was. She was like, no, I need to go see my infertility doctor now to make sure that, things are whatever. And then meanwhile, I was kind of like, no, let's just kind of let it play out, because we have kind of seen this scene before, right? So we go to the infertility doctor, and he's scanning her, and he's like, nope, it's not in the uterus. And then he scans, and then he's like, there it is. He's like, and then we heard the heartbeat as 125 beats, a minute, nice and strong. We both looked at each other. We both was like, man, the heartbeat was so strong. And he was like, I called over to the hospital. You got to go over there right now. It needs to come out or your life is in danger. Right.
Because it's not the right place.
It's not in the right place.
Yeah.
It's not in the right place. Right. And we go from this feeling of in the morning, hey, we're going to go see our baby, to now she's in the hospital, and then now she comes out and she's just in excruciating pain. And I just remember that time, she was bedridden for about a week and a half, almost 2 weeks. And I'm just like, caring for her, and she's, very, very tearful and stuff like that. And then at that point, it was like, we are lost. We are lost. Like, I don't think this family thing is ever going to happen, but we found out that there had been internal bleeding. It had already ruptured. And if it was, I don't know how much longer, she would have been, her life would have been compromised.
That's right.
So we hear these topics, and we don't hear these stories to understand it hits home. There's the reality of life where there's things that are just very imperfect, right? This is an imperfect situation, but we can't compromise someone's life for situations like that, because these are things that are happening, right? And you need to hear the perspective of this kind of story, because it's not perfect. It's not ideal, right?
No,
but
it's very messy and very confusing. I mean, and from a faith perspective, like, I don't know, Sam, I struggled with that. I remember calling a friend of mine during my tubal, and let me just pause and say,
go ahead.
You and I have talked about the ectopic briefly, and I'm just so sorry that your wife and you understand that feeling. Like, I'm sorry that we share that personal experience, because it just sucks. There's nothing nice to say about it, right?
Yeah.
Other than one day, I hope I get to hold that baby in my arms, and that child greets me at the gates of heaven. Like, that would be a glorious day. But I called a friend of mine who is like, if I say hardcore Catholic, and said, and she's a nurse. And I was like, I don't know what to do. And she's like, what do you mean you don't know what to do? And I was like, well, I can't abort this child. Like, I can't terminate this pregnancy. I don't think we didn't say the word abort at that time. It was terminated pregnancy. And she's like, so if you don't, you die. And I was like, I understand, but 100 years ago it would have died. And she was like, are you serious? Like, you really think God is done? Like, he wants you to be done on this earth? Make the appointment. You don't have a choice. But it was a choice. And it was a terrible choice. And for us, we did methotrexate, which is a chemo drug that they do one shot in the butt, and then you go home, and then it's like, that this is happening inside of your body. They told us at that time we could get pregnant within 10 months, and we did. And then there was still methotrexate in my system, and it took the next baby. So it was it just, so it was a double loss doesn't, but yeah, anyway, it's a horrible thing. And, with that hot topic of abortion, I'm not going to pretend to understand what's good for us as a blanketed nation. I'm not going to pretend to understand what's good for individuals.
Correct.
I've driven friends to an abortion clinic. It's not my choice for other people. I'm more of the sit in the middle and want to listen and understand all perspectives from a political perspective.
Correct.
What I can tell you is my experience is, if I couldn't go in and get that shot of methotrexate, I wouldn't be here today.
Yeah.
And I feel like God wants me here, and I get to do his work. So
absolutely.
It's tough, man.
Same here. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing, Sam.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I have no problem sharing, because I know it will, help someone down the line on the hurdles life is going to throw you, right?
Yep.
I didn't ask for that. I didn't ask to be in that situation. All we wanted to do is have a family. So
yeah.
So
I'm glad you have your beautiful family now. Yeah. That is one thing I do tell people when they're going through a loss now, and they ask, and I try not to give my opinion or perspective unless asked, but when they say, how did you get through that time period? I always say to them, so Maya, Webster, and Georgia are my kids' names.
Yep.
Maya was first, ectopic, the second loss, Webb, another loss, and then Georgia. if it had been any one of those 3 babies in between, it wouldn't be Webb and Georgia living their lives here on earth with us here today.
Yeah.
I'm sure happy it's them. So while it was
Yes.
torturous in the moment,
Yeah.
again, like God's vision of, all right, you see the long run. I don't always.
Yes, for sure. He does. I think part of it was, when I talk about it in depth with my wife, part of it is almost like learning to detach from certain thoughts and ideas, and this may sound strange, but for us, we are in the work of foster care, so it requires us to love with all that we got, and when it's time to just let go.
Amen.
Right? And
put that emotional pie piece back. Let it go. Feel it, put it back in there.
Exactly. And that's the best way to describe it, right? Because there's, like we said earlier, there's always a lesson learned through every single challenge.
Yeah, but don't deny it, right? Don't deny where you are in that moment. If you're sitting in there too long, weeks and months go by, probably time to talk with someone and figure out how to move through that. Are you familiar with the prayer of Jabez from the Bible?
No.
So Jabez is mentioned in the Bible very briefly, and I'm not going to pretend to be a Bible expert. I am not. Okay. Like, I'm probably the worst person to start with, like, well, in the Bible, I'm really not good. But yeah. Jabez is a character that's mentioned, and it's a very short. Jabez reaches out to God and says, and I'm going to read this to you, but it says, Jabez called on the God of Israel, saying, "Oh, that you would bless me indeed and enlarge my territory, that your hand would be with me and keep me from evil, that I may not cause pain." And I just want to break that down, because this is like where I've leaned in with my family and my life, right? Mm-hmm. Like, Lord, please bless me. However you see fit, please bless me. And the key part for me, 2 parts: enlarge my territory. So just when I think it's enough. So see, I look at you being a husband, being a father, being a friend, being a counselor, doing your podcast, doing your day job, like doing all the things, right? Just when you think there is no way I have one more inch or smile or word to give, like, Lord, enlarge my territory. So for me, it might be coming on this podcast with you, right? Sharing an hour together. Enlarge my territory. That your hand be with me, so you're guiding me at every turn, and that you keep me from evil. And I'm a big believer in that prayer, because if we believe in God, we have to understand that there is also evil in this world. And so protect me from evil. And 100%. Jabez, this is what he says, and God grants it. And it is a prayer that I pray over my life and my family's life. And I will add you, like, and others that are listening, like, just help enlarge our territory. Just when we think we have nothing else to give, let us give a little more. So anyway, I don't know what made me think of that, but I want to share it. I did. And it's a book. There's a short book on it that's fantastic. Yeah. Really, really good.
Yeah, that brings me to Matthew, where it says, seeking you'll find, knocking I'll open. Right. So he's giving you guidance and telling you exactly if you have this sort of faith to ask and believe that you will receive. Yes. Right. So that's the same thing with the power of healing through, a lot of challenges. And, that's a thing that people struggle with, and they try to find it within themselves, and it's nowhere near yourself that you'll find it.
That's right.
Right. So, but if you access, our Lord and Savior, then you'll be granted those things. So.
Not always on our timing.
Definitely not on our not
that
on
whole.
Our time.
There's an old Garth Brooks song. If you're into like old country, of unanswered prayers. Thank God for unanswered prayers, and it rings in my head, kind of like your song earlier. Like sometimes that rings in my head of like, thank God for unanswered prayers, because boy, I sure think I know what's right.
Yeah. So, so we've been chatty, and we didn't talk about anything entrepreneurial yet. So, which is actually perfectly fine with me. So, so I just want you to kind of just go through your entrepreneurial story.
I mean, I think I've always had it in me, but I didn't recognize it as entrepreneurial. So, as a kid, I was one that would be like, you'd come over to the house and I'd be like, I'll sell you this stuffed animal for 25 cents. Like
Mm-hmm.
it was there. I mean, I probably had my share of lemonade stands and all that. I mowed yards and, came up with crazy business ideas all the time that lasted for a minute. Um, as a teenager, that really manifested more into leadership. So high school and college, it was through, whether it was student government in high school or it was through my sorority. I'm a Delta Zeta, and boy, that taught me a lot about leadership and who and how I want to operate in the world. So there are a lot of entrepreneurial opportunities in there for fundraisers and things like that. But for me, I did undergrad and grad school. I went on to be an event planner. I had a couple of personal tragedies that now I can smile through, but one of my best friends committed suicide. My dad, the one that was the alcoholic that passed away, was beaten by 5 guys with baseball bats and left for dead on the side of the street. Now he lived, but that was traumatic for everybody. I'm his oldest kid, so you can imagine the caregiving in there. And so my mom won a cruise through work, took me on a cruise and surrounded me by water, which is very much where I feel the Holy Spirit the most, is near water.
Mm-hmm.
And I heard the message very clearly that I needed to come home and quit my job and start a not-for-profit adult day center. I was 27. They're literally, Sam, friends were talking about me behind my back and planning an intervention. They thought I had lost my mind.
Oh, jeez.
So I did. I for 2 years, about 2.5 years, I did everything short of, and I I'm joking. I did not do these things, but when I say it, please understand, like short of prostitution and drug dealing. Like you had a job, I was your girl. You want me to come clean the kids' rooms out? I do it. Right? Anything you need, I will do it. I did pay my taxes on that down the road. But I did. I had a flip phone that worked as my car worked as my office, and I had the flip phone with the antenna that went up, and you and I could talk business about the adult day, as I'd just been scrubbing somebody's toilet, and so that was 25 years ago. And now Joy's House, JOY''S, so joyshouse.org. We have 2 adult day centers, which if you don't know what those are places where older adults or someone living with a diagnosis, a life-altering diagnosis, can come during the day. And our whole goal is to help them live at home. Really, if your loved one comes, if it's your uncle and he comes and he stays with us during the days, comes home to your family dining room table at night, sleeps in his own bed, and one day dies at your home in that bed, that for us is such a huge win that we've kept him at home with his family, until the day he passes.
And you were caring for him.
So we do adult day. We've got 2 locations, and then we do caregiver support and education, which family caregivers are such an important part of our culture and how we operate as a nation, and they don't have enough support and education. And so we have programs that we continue to create that are entrepreneurial in spirit. When I go back to my 27-year-old self, and I remember a phone call with my mom, and I said to her, I can't believe I'm going to try and do this Joy's House thing. I am not an entrepreneur. And she said, yeah, you are. And I was like, I am? I think sometimes it's like we get wrapped into these big words. Entrepreneur feels huge. And like, what does that mean? And I don't have all the skill set. Well, my advice to someone who says, I don't have all the skill set to do the thing, surround yourself by people who do. People often think that I'm brilliant and I'm great at these things. And the reality is I'm really good with people. Now, I can do a budget. I can do the care. I can do all the things, right? But I am a better version of myself because I surround myself by people who know more or can do more or who are more connected than I am. It has very little to do with me.
Yes, for sure. So one of my favorite books, and I'll recommend it to you too, but clearly you already know it, is Who Not How, right? And it talks about getting the right who's around you and not staying focused on the how.
I actually don't know that book. I'm looking it up right now.
Book?
No.
And for the longest time, I would stay focused on the how, and it'll be just so like magnetizing to me. How is this? All of the pieces are going to work, and how is everything's going to flow? and it's got to look like this and stuff like that. But that was just a really big mind shift for me when, I read that book, and it was just like, if you get the right who, it might even explode bigger than you even imagine it.
Expand my territory.
Expand your territory. Exactly.
We're so egocentric to think we have to have all the answers. And it's
that
like,
is true.
No, I don't. I mean, there's no way. I'm not that good.
Yes.
So that's kind of my, entrepreneurial. Now, what I did do back in early 2023 is I finally finished a book that I have been talking for probably 15 years. My friends and family were probably like, do something about it or stop talking about it. And okay. I finally wrote a book, and that was kind of a culmination of a lot of the entrepreneurial stuff for me. And
go ahead. Sorry.
That's all right. No worries. And so that's really a culmination of a lot of it's my lessons learned in life.
Okay. Wow. Yeah. Beautiful. So I want to dive a little further into this entrepreneur. Do you think it's more challenging for you as a woman entrepreneur than it is a man?
So this is an interesting question that no one has ever asked me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
You don't
know.
Okay.
And I'm going to say this, and again, I don't think this is a popular opinion, but I think a lot to do with me sitting in the middle. I'm not sure what a libertarian politician really is, but I think that's where I sit. I have my own values for myself, but I don't want to put them onto other people. And I also, and now listen, for those who can't see my face, I'm a middle-aged, middle-class white woman. So that I think needs to be said in me answering this question too. Yeah. And I'm not trying to take away from anybody else's experience, but you asked me a question, right? Correct. My experience.
Yes.
I do not think it's been harder for me as a woman.
Okay.
Now, would someone along the way have called me a bitch or a nag or any of the words that women get? Yeah, probably. I don't care. I'm like, okay, cool. I probably was bitchy and naggy, but probably for a reason, Yes. I am. I'm kind. I'm charismatic. I'm assertive. I am maybe not as opinionated, but I do have an opinion, and I will share it appropriately. And I'm smart enough to know to surround myself by good people. Now, I will drive you crazy if I'm trying to get something accomplished, and I will take advantage of your kindness and generosity until you tell me no. I run a not-for-profit. I do it for the good of the people that I serve. Yeah. But I hope to always do that with a kindness and an understanding. And I'm the first one too, Sam, to say, like, listen, if you're not interested in Joy's House, if you're not interested in my business or my book or whatever it is, that's okay. I hope you have something that is fulfilling to you and that you're passionate about and that brings you back to the word purpose in your life. It might not be lessons learned. It might not be older adults or aging. It might be fostering children. That warms my heart. That's not where my strengths and my passion lie. So praise God for you and your wife and other people like you. But yeah, I don't think it's been harder for me as a woman. As a matter of fact, I got some charm in there that a lot of men don't have, and I'll use it. I'll use it for the good of the cause with limits.
Sounds good to me. I mean,
and you'll know what's happening.
Yeah.
Right? You'll know I'm manipulating you as we go along. I don't make any secrets about it. But no, I don't think it has. I do think that culturally, and I'm going to say something out of both sides of my mouth, I think that sometimes we fall victim because we're told to fall victim, right? Yes. As a woman, as a Black man, as a whatever it is, right?
Yep. I agree.
I mean, I look like a lesbian. I have a mohawk. Like, I'm cool with that. But some people judge me for that? Yeah, I'm sure
probably.
of it. Yeah. Okay, cool. I don't need you in my life. And you probably won't be a part of, want to be a part of what I'm doing. I'm not going to fall victim. Now, I can change my hair. I can't change my gender or skin color or whatever. Yeah. But so I think there's also, I'm not naive, there's a lot of truth in the hardships that people have to overcome. So that might be my middle-aged white woman speaking. My answer is no.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Good. No, that's good to get that perspective. Do you feel like there's certain traits that you need to have as an entrepreneur to be successful?
Ooh, these are such good questions. Yes. Yes, off the top of my head, you better be organized or figure out how to be organized. As an entrepreneur, you better be charismatic. No one wants to follow a want leader. Um, I think that you have to have an awareness that it's not all about you and your mission, and that even when you're bringing people into the fold as as some people would say, staff or employees, I would say coworkers, these are humans that have a life. Uh, I remember when COVID hit, it's come back several times. One of the things that we did when we sent our staff home, because we work in direct care, right? We couldn't have, we work with the most vulnerable population.
Yeah.
And one of my coworkers came back to me and said, thank you for continuing to pay the paycheck. Thank goodness for the loans that were out there. Thank you for continuing to give us work and giving us purpose if we wanted to take that. Thank you for this. Thank you for that. Thank you for checking in on us and bringing us gifts and doing all those things. And she said, you know what I'm most grateful for? She said, when we left the house, Joy's house that day, and we were also scared about where we were going to find toilet paper.
Oh, wow.
We handed rolls of toilet paper to our coworkers and said, here, and you will continue your pay. And she was like, thank you for the toilet paper. I mean, so it's so silly, but being aware, right? Like, that there are little things and big things that matter to people. And it's the reason they come to work and do their job every day to fulfill the mission that you set forward. So I think there are a lot of skills that entrepreneurs need to have. Assertiveness is one of them, but you can do it with kindness. You don't have to be a jerk.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I completely agree with some of the traits that you described: organized, charismatic, awareness, and mission driven. I think sometimes what happens too, and people may miss, is you're doing life with these people, right?
You're doing life. Yeah,
you're doing life with them. So you need to look at it like that when you choose to take on any employees, that we're doing life together, and you better like doing life with the people you're around, right? Because they could either suck,
yes,
or or something else from you. They could suck from you. So,
and find something to appreciate about them, right? Like, if you
sure.
and I work together now, listen, you and I are driving great. I like this. I like what we going. But let's pretend we don't. You don't like something about me, or you don't like my personality, but you like the work that I turn out. Find something about me. There's something you can find that you can help empower and lift up and acknowledge and just love. I mean, we're called to do that, right? And so, yes. What would you add to that list?
And let's see. I would say vision, right? If you have a solid vision, and then obviously you put a plan together, that's probably for me, because I am a visionary, right? I could see into the future. I could see what it looks like, even, because I've been a serial entrepreneur, and I know it takes steps to get there, right? Yes. But I could see what the vision is and then create the steps working backwards to get there. And that's the other thing too. Take messy action. Do not be afraid to create this vision. So you have to be assertive and, taking, a ridiculous amount of action to be an entrepreneur. So these are just two traits that I feel like add to that table for sure.
And do one thing every day. I mean, someone told me that in the beginning. Do one thing every day, whether it is talk with someone else, cry about it, pray about it, study about it, send an email, whatever it is, have a meeting. Do one thing every day. And now this sounds exhausting, but if we apply that to our marriages, our relationships with our children, our friendships, our family, ourselves, our self-care, if we did one thing every day, we would get to that goal. So then it becomes about prioritizing what's the highest goal right now.
For sure. So before we jump off, you wrote a book about lessons learned.
I did, which is funny. I realize now.
which is funny, because we always end with, what is your biggest and best lessons learned from business and in life?
Okay, so the book is my biggest lesson. The book is called Embrace the Imbalance.
Okay.
All right. So embrace the imbalance. Things you need to know from people I wish you knew. And can I read you it's a very short chapter. Can I read you
Go for it.
The Embrace the Imbalance chapter? Okay.
Go ahead. Go for it.
Available on Amazon or wherever you buy books.
Go get it.
So this is the very last chapter in the book. It's called Embrace the Imbalance, named after the book. Balance what you eat, balance your relationships, balance your schedule, balance your work and personal life. Balance, balance, balance. Balance everything all the time. I mean, I get that if you're going to have a piece of cheesecake the size of a soccer ball, you probably need to pack in some spinach and salmon. I understand that if you've been working a ton and you're constantly on the go, you might want to slow down now and then. Maybe take some moments to meditate, read, or spend time with someone you love. But is that really balance, or is that embracing the imbalance? There's a substantial difference. Balance is about keeping things symmetrical, identical on all sides. It's about things being equal. If we were told to draw a picture of balance, you'd probably draw scales and balance beams. Maybe we'd get creative and draw a ballerina or someone riding a bicycle. Oh, a tightrope walker would be good. Can you imagine being a tightrope walker? Sorry, did I mention I had the brain radiation? my brain's not functioning.
No judgment. Yeah.
Maybe we'd get creative and draw a ballerina or someone riding a bike. Or a tightrope walker would be good. Can you imagine being a tightrope walker? Just one small mistake and down you go, spinning, confused, scared, weightless until you're not. That's what trying to find balance in my life can feel like. Just one small mistake and down I go. I don't like that feeling. And for me, it's not the way I want to live. I erased my belief in balance as a guiding principle in my life a long time ago. I'm not a tightrope walker. Trying to balance everything all the time is simply not possible, and it's exhausting. The more I tried to balance things, the more I felt like I was perpetually behind, or somehow I was less than. I felt like I was letting myself and everyone around me down, like I wasn't good enough at, well, anything. And do you know why? Because I'm not good at everything, especially all at once. There are days when I'm a great wife and I'm not so good in the office. There are other days when I don't spend as much time as I would like with my kids, but I rock a presentation. Sometimes I'm an incredible friend who shows up with old stories and new memories, and sometimes I fall really short as a friend and I don't reach out for weeks or months or longer. Almost done here, Sam. There's something that I value way more than balance. It's being present, like really being present wherever I am. I want to be great right here. And when this time is done, I want to move on and I want to be great for the next person, the next moment, the next thing. Giving yourself permission to embrace the imbalance in life isn't about taking anything away. On the contrary, it's giving your permission to shine right where you are. Be great right here. So as you turn the page to move on to the next thing in your life, I hope that you show up as the best version of yourself, because you, my friend, were made to do great things. You were born to fill this beautiful and confusing world that we live in with love and care. So the next time you find yourself trying to do all of the things and you feel like you might be falling short, I encourage you to stop for a moment. That might just be the perfect time for you to embrace the imbalance and be really great right where you are. So that's my biggest lesson.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Thanks.
Be present.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. You captured a lot of different thoughts when it comes to that, and thank you for sharing. Thank you for coming on this podcast and being
great.
So open and vulnerable, and this was nice and easy banter. So
yeah, I appreciate it very much, and I look forward to following you and hearing from your other guests and from you, Sam. You've got a lot to offer, and thank you for taking the time to do this. I know it's not easy, but it's a part of your journey.
Yeah, sounds good. Appreciate you. Have a great day.
All right. God bless. See ya.
Yeah, God bless you.